I'm Jenna with Stahls TV, and welcome to the Craft Corner. Time and time again, we get questions from customers and viewers about whether or not they can use CadworxLIVE.com with their craft cutter. Now, those craft cutters are known as the Silhouette Cameo, Cricut, Brother Scan and Cut, really any cutter that is 12 inches and works based off of a stepper motor. Now, those cutters already come with software that they can create their artwork in, but some decorators are trying to look for other sources in which they can have access to templates and clip art. Now, the answer is that you can use CadworxLIVE.com with those cutters, but there are a few steps that you have to take in order to get your artwork from the online designer to your design software that comes with your cutter. Let's head to the laptop and go through those steps now. I have CadworxLIVE.com brought up on my desktop here. I'm just going to run through and show you how to get logged in and everything. So you can see that I'm already logged in. A page just like this will pop up whenever you go to CadworxLIVE.com, and instead of log out, it's actually going to say log in. So you can see I'm already logged in. So all you'll have to do is click the login button, put your name, your username or your email and your password in there, and you'll get logged in, and it'll bring you to a page just like this. All right, so I want to go to Design Studio, so I'm going to hover over my Design tab up there, and I'm going to see 4 options drop down. I want to go to the second option. That's my Design Studio 2.2. It just has updated versions that's going to allow me to do more things and have more features. So I already have this tab open, so I'm going to go ahead up to my second tab up here. And whenever I click that Launch Design Studio 2.2 button, this page is going to pop up, and it's going to bring up a little window here that has a bunch of different options. So this has my first option is going to be to go to my files that I already have created, or you can import files if you created artwork in Adobe Illustrator or Corel Draw or even Silhouette Studio. You can import your designs that way. All right, and I already have my design made up already, so I'm just going to click my files, and it's going to bring up all of my designs here. So you can see I use this a lot. This is typically where I do most of my artwork creation. So I have my pillowcase design right here. And the pillowcase design is what we're going to be applying here shortly. I'm just going to show you how we get this artwork created. So I'm going to be doing CAD cut patterns with this design, and what I did was filled in my text with that pattern. I'm going to show you how you can do all of these features. That way, if you want to create a file to show to your customer before you create the actual project itself, you can just show them this, let them approve it. That way you know that they like what you're going to be doing for them. Okay, so I'm just going to move this off to the side, and I'm going to show you how to recreate this. I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller, and I'm going to first start by adding text. So I want to get that A in there nice and big, so going to type in A where it says text, and then of course I want to choose my font. So I'm going to click my font box, and it's going to bring up a bunch of fonts that CadworxLIVE provides to you. I used a font that I imported myself, so I'm going to go to my fonts up here, and they're all going to pop up. So what I did was use my Easy Open Face font. I'm just going to open that, and you can see that it has an open area where I don't have over here. So if I were to fill this pattern in there, that pattern is only going to fill where the black is. So what I want to do is break this apart, and I'm going to go to Shaping and Break Apart by Curves. It's going to bring up all of those lines, and I'm going to be able to pull them out if I don't want them there. So since I don't want that to be an open space, I'm just going to pull that out, and now I'm left with a solid letter. So I can fill that in so that I know, or my patterns will actually show more bold as opposed to thinner lines. All right, so I can go ahead and what I want to do is make sure that this triangle is going to stay inside this A. So since I broke it apart by its curves, it's going to show that this is a separate piece. So what I need to do is do a back minus front option so that triangle there punches through that solid piece of the A. So what I'm essentially doing is just grouping this back together. So what I'm going to do is select my triangle and also my A by holding in Control and clicking each piece that I want to use. All right, so I'm going to go up to shaping, and I'm going to do back minus front, and that's going to punch that triangle right through that A for me. So now I'm just left with one solid piece. I don't have to work with two different pieces. So I can go ahead and just fill this in with the color black for right now. And then, of course, I want to create my text that is going to lay over top of my pattern heat transfer vinyl. So what I'm going to do is click Add Text. I want it to say Aubrey and Ross. And then I'm going to go to My Fonts and choose the font that I want it to be in. Okay, so I'm going to choose Stylish Calligraphy Demo, because that's the font that I want to use for this particular project. And then, of course, I want to make that a different color so that I know the difference between my heat transfer vinyl, so whenever I'm choosing the colors. Okay, so that has that there, and of course I want to do the same font, but I want to do my numbers. So I'm just going to duplicate this by clicking Control D, and then that'll bring up that same font in the same size so that I don't have to try to figure out, go in there and mess with my width and height. So I want to keep the date roughly the same size, and then if I want to size it down, I can do that afterwards. So I'm going to highlight Aubrey and Ross and change that to the date that they're getting married. So that's June 17th, 2017. And I can click OK. And then that brings it up there for me. So I'm just going to move this up slightly, move this up as well. And I want this to be sized down just a little bit. All right, of course, because we want to mimic my design that I have over here. All right, so I have that done. I'm happy with the way that looks. I want to make sure the date is directly center underneath Aubrey and Ross, so I'm going to select those two lines of text, and I'm going to click Align and Center, and that's going to go ahead and make sure everything's center for me. All right, so I can go ahead and move that off to the side for now, and I'm going to show you how I can fill this text in with a pattern. So I wanted to do CAD cut patterns, so I'm going to go to texture, and it's going to bring up recent images that I've imported. Okay, so there's my pattern image, so I can double click that, and that's going to fill that A in for me so that I have that pattern. All right, and it has a black line around it. I want to remove that just so that it looks more like what I'm going to be creating for them. So all I have to do is go to Line and take down my transparency, and that'll take that line right off of there. I want to make my sample as realistic as possible when I'm showing my customer before I create it, so they know exactly what it's going to look like. So that's going to take a little bit to load. We'll wait for that to load. I'm going to show you how to import an image to lay it on top of there. So obviously we're putting this on top of a pillowcase. So what I can do is go ahead and get rid of my image over here since we recreated it. And I'm going to import, click Browse. I'm going to go to my pictures and find that pillowcase so that they know what it's going to look like once I iron it on there. All right, so obviously it's covering up my graphic that I just created, so I'm going to click To Back, and it's going to push it back there. And then I can just make this bigger or smaller just so that it fits right on that pillow. All right, and then I want to go ahead and darken my gray here since I'm going to be using a charcoal color in fashion film. All right, so I have dark gray. That works for me. And that'll go ahead and change that color That way the text stands out a lot better on that pillow for them. All right, so that is how you create this design in CadworxLIVE.com. And now you can use this as a sample to show your customers. Now, of course, we need to know, how can I bring this up into Silhouette Studio? Well, all you have to do is get rid of this image, because we're not going to be cutting the image of that pillowcase. Now we're just going to be doing the whole cut process. So what I want to do is just make this all black. And then I'm going to go ahead and export this as a JPEG. So I just go to File and Export. I already have JPEG in there. You can title it so you know where to find it. Just going to put pillowcase there. And then I'm going to make this screen a little smaller and just drag this right to my desktop. All right, so I have my pillowcase file right there. Just going to drag it to my desktop. That way it's easy for me to find whenever I bring up Silhouette Studio. All right, so I have Silhouette Studio right here. I'm just going to click that and open it. And then to import that, I'm just going to click File, click Open, have my desktop selected. So I can just go and find that image. So I'm going to double click pillowcase. It's going to bring that image up for me nice and big, and that's what we want because we're going to be doing that trace process in Silhouette Studio. That's going to allow me to just copy this image. So I have my trace window right here. It's that little butterfly button. So you can just click that. I'm going to click Select Trace Area and drag my box across my image. That way everything's selected, and then everything will start to fill in yellow. That is when you know that everything is starting to be filled in. Now, of course, we don't want to see any black or gray in there, so we need to mess with our value, threshold, and scale. I take the threshold up first to 50. Missed my 5 there. There we go. All right, so you can see that's starting to fill in a little more. And then I'm just going to mess with my scale. So I'm just going to drag this up until I see everything is filling in nicely for me. You can see that my lines are starting to get a little choppy. So I'm going to start doing my value and taking my scale down a little bit. All right, so it's going to smooth out those lines for me. All right, so those are the 3 filters that you want to mess with or adjust so that you can get your trace to look true to the design that you created. Right, so now that everything's filled in yellow, I'm going to click Trace, and it's going to go ahead and make those cut lines for me within Silhouette Studio. So I can drag this away and actually just delete that off of the page because I no longer need that image since everything's traced. And now if I want to zoom in to check those cut lines to make sure they're nice and smooth, I can do that. So you can see I have nice smooth lines here and I'm ready to cut. So of course, these are going to be cut in 2 different heat transfer vinyls. My A is going to be cut in pattern heat transfer vinyl, and my other text is going to be cut in fashion film. So I need to make sure these are ungrouped. So I'm going to go to Object, Release Compound Path. That's going to make every section completely separate. So if I click this A, it's going to be selected and the rest of the name will not be. Now I want this entire text over here to be grouped since it's going to be cut out of the same color and same fashion film. So I'm going to group that by clicking Group under my Object tab. And now this is all one piece. And then I want to do the same for my A here, because that little triangle is being configured as something else. So I want to hit Group, and that's going to group that all together. Now, of course, we're working with heat transfer vinyl. We need to reverse or mirror our images so that when it cuts on the silhouette, it's cutting correctly whenever we go to heat apply it. So I'm going to click Mirror, and I'm going to click Flip Horizontally. I'm going to do the same thing with this image as well. Object, mirror, and flip horizontally. All right, so my design is ready to cut. I want to do my pattern heat transfer vinyl first, so I can move that off to the side, and it won't read that if I just move that off to the side, and all it's going to read is my A because it's on that grid. All right, so I can go ahead and send this to cut by clicking my blade cut setting tab, and of course I want to cut, and I want to choose heat transfer vinyl smooth. So I'm going to scroll down till I see heat transfer material with the smooth option underneath. Then I'm going to go ahead and adjust my settings. All right, so I want my speed to be at 4, my blade to be at 2, and my thickness to be at 2. So I can go ahead and send this to cut. Alright, so now that my designs are all cut out, I can go ahead and weed away my design. I'm going to start by pulling out the inside cavities before weeding away the rest of the material. So now that I have all of my cavities weeded out, I can go ahead and weed away the rest of my excess material. Keep in mind, I'm going to be weeding from left to right of my design so that the vinyl pulls into all those open areas and creates less start and stop points. So it looks like I have some heat transfer vinyl left over in some areas, so I'm going to go ahead and weed those out. One nice thing about working with fashion film whenever you're weeding, if a piece of your design happens to pick up while you're weeding, that tacky carrier will keep it right down in place just by pushing that right down where it needs to go. All right, so now that I have weeded out the fashion film design, I can go ahead and move on to my CAD cut patterns, weed away that excess material, and finish the rest of that process. Alright, so you can see that my patterns are in a positive image. So I'm going to grab my medium tack mask and lay that right over top of the design so that I can transfer my CAD cut patterns to that masking so that the adhesive will adhere to the fabric. I'm just going to lay my masking right over top. I'm going to grab my squeegee and I'm going to press right down over top of my CAD cut patterns and make sure I'm getting very close to those edges to make sure that it's transferring. Now whenever you are doing the squeegee process, you can either use an actual squeegee for this or you can use a credit card. Anything with a thin hard edge that will get that nice and smoothly across there so that the transfer is happening well. Alright, so now that I'm done squeegeeing this, I'm going to flip this over and peel the carrier from my mask. I'm just going to pull this. You can tell that it's very tacky. Just keep pulling nice and slowly to make sure that all of the CAD cut patterns is transferred over to the masking. Once you get that carrier off there, you can grab the backing from the mask and place your transfer on there to save the adhesive on the back. For the pillowcase application, we're going to be working with this pillowcase that has a zipper on the back. So what we need to do is insert a heat printing pillow so that that zipper doesn't get in the way of having a nice flat, even pressure that will give us a nice adhesion from our CAD cut patterns. So I'm just going to go ahead and insert this pillow right in there. And you can see that my design is slightly larger than the heat printing pillow, so you're going to be seeing me adjust this a little bit to make sure that I'm getting a nice flat area in the place in which I'm ironing the design. All right, so I can go ahead and flip this over. I'm going to get it nice and center in the pillow. Before I apply my CAD cut patterns, I'm going to do a quick preheat to release any moisture or wrinkles in the fabric. For this application, I'm going to start by laying this right down in the center. Make sure my design where I'm going to start applying is right on that heat printing pillow so that we're getting a nice flat pressure. I have my iron set at the cotton linen settings, anytime you're using a home iron to apply a heat transfer, make sure you're starting at the synthetic fabric setting and then work your way up to the heat that you need it to be. My CAD cut patterns typically applies at 300 degrees, so I want to make sure that my settings is at the cotton linen setting. To start applying, I'm going to be applying at the bottom part of my design and working my way up. Typically, whenever I'm applying CAD cut patterns with a heat press, it's about a 10-second dwell time. So I'm going to be holding my iron down in the first section of my design for 10 seconds with a firm pressure. All right, so now that I am moving up to the top part of my design, I'm going to adjust my heat printing pillow underneath so that the top of my design is laying right over top of that, so I have a nice flat and even pressure. And then I can go ahead, just like I did with the other part of my design, apply for 10 seconds, hold that iron there right on that spot with a nice firm pressure. Now that I'm done applying with my home iron, I can go ahead and peel my carrier back. I'm going to do this nice and slow just to make sure that each edge of my design is down. Now that I've peeled my carrier back, I'm going to go over it one more time with the iron just to make sure each edge is down nice and smoothly so that when this goes through the wash cycle, it's not going to start lifting up. All right, so I'm going to go in with the next piece of my design, my CAD cut fashion film. You can see that this design is also larger than the size of my heat printing pillow, so I'm going to go ahead and move that over and start on the left side of my design and work my way towards the right. Now I still have some vinyl exposed, so I'm going to grab my cover sheet, lay that right over top. I'm going to hold the iron on the left side of my design for 15 seconds using a nice firm pressure. Now I'm starting to feel that I'm getting pretty close to the edge of that heat printing pillow, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust that, and then I can finish the rest of my application. Fashion film's a hot peel, so I can go ahead and peel that carrier back as soon as I'm done transferring that to the pillow. And once that carrier is off, I'm going to go ahead and cover with my cover sheet. And one last time, I'm just going to run this over with the iron to ensure that I have a nice smooth adhesion with both the CAD cut patterns and the CAD cut fashion film. So now I'm just going to remove the heat printing pillow, and now we have a completed personalized pillowcase, perfect as a gift for an upcoming wedding. CadworxLIVE.com has a variety of different clip arts and templates that are completely customizable for you to use. So be sure to go through those and check them all out. Now, if you're looking to advance your knowledge on all the things that are possible for you to do in CadworxLIVE.com, be sure to visit Stahls TV under our training videos tab and check out those videos to learn more. I'm Jenna with Stahls TV, and thanks for joining me in the Craft Corner.